Hello everyone. To continue with our lecture series of textual analysis of the drama Macbeth, and in our last lecture we have completed the textual analysis of scene 2nd of Act 4, and now we have come to scene 3rd of this same act. So to remind you all, the major action that took place in the previous scene is that when Macbeth got the news that Macduff has gone to England, and this made Macbeth very furious, and he decides to kill the remaining family members of Macduff's family. So he sent the murderers to kill Lady Macduff and her children, and they all are killed in that attack. So this is the major action of the previous scene, and now we'll start with scene 3rd of Act 2nd, as you can see on the screen. And now I'm sharing the text from where we will start our textual analysis. Yes, as you can see, this is Act 4, Scene 3rd, and from here we will continue our textual analysis. So the scene is set in England. Before the King's Palace enter Malcolm and Macduff. So as you all know that Macduff has gone to England to seek help from there, and now Macduff has reached England, and there is one more character, is Malcolm. So Malcolm starts the conversation and he says, let us seek out our desolate shed, and there weep our sad bosoms empty. So Malcolm says to Macduff that let us go to some lonely place. Desolate place means lonely place, and there weep our sad bosoms empty, and there release our tragic tales and weep till our sad hearts become empty of tears. And he says, because of the sad plight of their motherland. Macduff, let us rather hold fast and mortal sword, and like good men bestride our downfalling birthdom. But Macduff is not agree with Malcolm, and he says that we should rather boldly hold the sword in our hand, and like honest men proceed to the suffering land of our birth to make her free. Each new morn, new windows whole, new orphans cry, new sorrows strike heaven on the face. And he also says that every new morning, new widows laments the death of their husbands, new orphans cry for their parents, and new sorrows cry so loudly that heaven resounds them as if it were in sympathy with Scotland. That is, resound as if it felt with Scotland, and yell out like syllable of dolor, and the sky seems to lament the suffering fate of Scotland. So it means that everyone in Scotland is very living a very plightful or very sorrowful life. Everyone is sad and suffering from the sadness and the brutality of Macbeth. Malcolm, what I believe I'll well, what no believe, and what I can redress, as I shall find the time to friend, I will. And Malcolm says that I shall lament only what I believe and believe what I know. So, as I shall find the time to friend, I will what you have spoke. It may be so perchance this tyrant whose sole name blisters our tongues was once thought honest. And he further says that I shall rectify the wrongs that I can when time favors me. What you have said may be after all true. This tyrant whose very name pollutes our tongues was once thought to be an honest man. This tyrant whose sole name blisters our tongues was once thought honest. So here the tyrant is referred to Macbeth, that once Macbeth was thought to be a very honest man, but as he became king, his behavior changed and he became a cruel person, a cruel king. I am young, but something you may deserve of him through me, and wisdom to offer up a weak, poor, innocent lamb to appease an angry God. And he also says that you have loved him well, and he has not yet hurt you. I am young, and you may get some reward for betraying me. It will be wise for you to sacrifice a weak, poor, and innocent lamb to please your angry God. So here, angry God is again referred to Macbeth, and innocent lamb is referred to Malcolm himself. So Malcolm says that to impress your king, you may sacrifice my life. Macduff, I am not treacherous, but Macduff says that I am not a traitor. Malcolm, but Macbeth is a good and virtuous nature may recoil in an imperial charge. And Malcolm says that but Macbeth is a traitor. A good and virtuous man may change his nature on the king's command. But I shall crave your pardon, that which you are. My thoughts cannot transpose. Angels are bright still, though the brightest fell. And he also says that, but I beg your pardon, whatever I may think of you, doubt and suspect you, you may not change what you are. Angels are still glorious, although the brightest of them. So, though all things foul would wear the brows of grace, your grace must still look so. So, Malcolm says that angels are still glorious, although the brightest of them, Satan, had fallen from heaven. Though all evil things may assume the look of innocence, virtuous must always look virtuous. Macduff, I have lost my hopes. Macduff says that I see that my hopes are not to be realized. Malcolm, perchance even there where I did find my doubts, why in that rawness left you wife and children, those precious motives, those strong notes of love. Then Malcolm shows the cause of his doubt on Macduff, that perhaps you have lost all hopes for the same reasons which has led me to suspect you, and the reason is that why did you leave your wife and children in such a thoughtless haste? So how could you afford to leave? Why did you leave your precious wife and children who are bound to your heart? by the strong ties of love. Without leave taking, I pray you, let not my jealousies be your dishonors, but mine own safeties. You may be rightly just, whatever I shall think. And he also says that, so why did you leave your precious wife and children who are bound to your heart by the strongest ties of love, and without bidding farewell to them? So please do not think that my doubts cast any slur upon you. So I am doing so for my own safety. You may be right. You may be rightly just. Whatever I shall think. So I am doing so, whatever I may think or suspect about you, but you may be rightly just and honest. So this is the reason why I doubt your behavior. In such a dangerous situation, you left your family there in the shelter of King Macbeth. Macduff, bleed, bleed, poor country. Great tyranny, lay thou thy bases show, for goodness dare not check thee, where thou thy wrongs, the title is afraid. And Macduff says that, let the poor country go to destruction. Great tyranny, let thou thy bases show, and great tyranny, establish yourself firmly, because for goodness dare not check thee. So, great tyranny, establish yourself firmly, because the noblemen of the country have no courage to control you or to check you. I wear thou thy wrongs, the title is afeard. Fare thee well, Lord, I would not be the villain that thou thinkest, for the whole space that's in the tyrant's grasp. And he also says that, carry on your evil deeds freely, because your right to the throne is firmly established. And my lord, farewell to you. So I would not be the villain that you think of me, even for the whole kingdom of Scotland that the tyrant hold, and for all the riches of the East in addition. So, fare thee well, Lord, I would not be the villain that thou thinkest, for the whole space that's in tyrant's grasp, and the rich fast to boot. So in this way, now Macduff is trying to convince Malcolm. Malcolm is the elder son of deceased King Duncan. So Macduff here is trying to convince Malcolm that his loyalty cannot be dealt with any cost, and he is always remain loyal for the welfare of the country. Malcolm, be not offended, I speak not as in absolute fear of you. I think our country sinks beneath the yoke. And now Malcolm says that, so please do not be offended. I speak all this not because I suspect you. I think that our country is sinking under the tyrannic rule of Macbeth. It weeps, it bleeds, and each new day a gash is added to her wounds. I think withal there would be hands uplifted in my right, and here from gracious England have I offer of goodly thousands. And Malcolm also says that our country is weeping, bleeding, and every day fresh afflictions are inflicted on it. I also believe that I shall win the support of the people of Scotland, and I have already had the offer of thousands of soldiers to help me from the kind hearted King of England. But for all this, when I shall tread upon the tyrant's head, or wear it out my sword, yet my poor country shall have more vices than it had before, more suffers, more more sundry ways than ever by him that shall succeed. So, nevertheless, when I shall press my foot upon the head of the tyrant, or slay his head on the point of my sword, my poor country will have to suffer more and more misfortunes and oppressions than it had ever been before. All this will happen during the rule of the new king who succeeds the tyrant Macbeth. Macduff. What should he be? So Macduff asked that who will succeed Macbeth? Malcolm. It is myself, I mean, in whom I know all the particulars of wise so grafted. And Malcolm says that I mean myself means I will be the next king after Macbeth's death. That I know that all the different kinds of evils are so deep rooted in me, and all the particular of vices so grafted that when they shall be open black, Macbeth will seem as pure as snow. So here Malcolm says that when all the different kind of evils are to be come in light, and at that time even wicked Macbeth will appear to be as pure as snow, and the poor state esteem him as a lamp being compared with my own confineless harms. And at that time the poor people of the country will regard him as a lamb when he is compared with me in my limitless evils. So here Malcolm also suspects his potentials, and he suspects that whether he would be a good king or not. So when he would succeed the throne, whether he would be able to he would be able to remove the sorrows of his countrymen. Macduff. Not in the legends of horrid hell can come a devil more damned in evils to top Macbeth. So here Macduff says that not even the limitless reasons of hell a greater devil than Macbeth can be found. Malcolm. I grant him bloody, luxurious, avaricious, false, deceitful, sudden, malicious, smacking of every sin that has a name. And Malcolm says that I admit that Macbeth is murderous, licentious, greedy, false, treacherous, hasty, passionate, and malicious, and in fact possessed every sin that anyone can mention. But there no bottom, none in my voluptuousness. Your wives, your daughters, your matrons, and your maids could not fill up the cistern of my of better Macbeth than such a one to reign. So, but there is no end to my sensuality. My desires would remove all obstacles and would beat down every opposition. It is better than It is better that Macbeth should continue to reign means to rule, than a man like myself should take his place. Macbeth. Boundless intemperance in nature is a tyranny. So it is a very nice line, and it means that unrestrained indulgence in sensual pleasures is certainly a form of tyranny in nature. It hath been the untimely emptying of the happy throne and fall of many kings, and it has been the cause of many kings being removed from their throne before time, and thus brought about the tale of kings and empires. So, and fail of many kings, but fear not yet to take upon you what is yours. You may convey your pleasures in a spacious plenty, and yet seem cold the time you may so hoodwink. So, but you should not hesitate to take the throne of Scotland, which is yours, and you may satisfy your desires as much as you like secretly, but in public you should maintain an outward decorum, and thus you should beguile time. Malcolm. With this there grows in my most ill-composed affection such a snatchless avarice, that were I king, I should cut off the nobles for their lands. And Malcolm says that along with this there is such an insatiable greed in my nature that if I were the king, I would kill all the noblemen in the country to snatch away their property. Desires his jewels and this other house, and my more having would be as a source to make me hunger more, that I should forge quarrels unjust against the good and loyal, destroying them for wealth. And I shall rob the treasures of one noble and seize upon the house of another. The more I get, the worse will be my greed. Then I shall pick up unnecessary quarrels with loyal and good persons in order that I may kill them for their money.